urgency.
I think it's just gonna bump it. If we do it the 27th, it's just 2 weeks and then it's another 3 weeks to our regular September meeting. So I would propose we leave it for our September regular meeting.
Okay.
Which is going to be on
September 20th.
20th.
Right. Is everyone in agreement with that?
So
And that way that will
we
give
won't
the,
be moving our own seat.
no. So, and that would give the African American Heritage Commission, plenty of time to get their recommendation and not feel rushed.
Excuse me, okay. Anne Marie, I just got an email from Harry. He wants someone to forward him the correct Zoom
If he
link for tonight.
uses what's on the bottom of the agenda, I can move him to the panel.
Okay.
It looks like, I have an email, it looks like he joined an old meeting from several weeks ago.
That's Harry.
Well,
Technology's great, right?
We won't tell him he said that. What's this thing?
Not for the minutes.
So, you know what? I'm going to invite him. Does anyone have his email address off the top of your heads?
I do.
Oh, never mind. That's not gonna work.
Say.
That, it's not gonna.
I don't know if I can find it on this phone. I have it at home.
I have it. You ready, Anne Marie?
Well, I think I'm gonna do it through. Okay, yes.
Harry Kaiser at mac.com.
And that's KU.
KEYSBR.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so he should have an email from City of Lewes.
Text him, email him.
It would be City of Lewes at Gmail is what he'll get.
Thank you. Okay, so we're
good.
okay.
So just to summarize, the 16th will be the regular Parks and Rec meeting. The 19th, which is August, will be the Lewes African American Heritage Commission meeting. And then their recommendation will be on the agenda for Parks and Rec's September 20th meeting.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for that discussion. Was there anything else, Kay? All right, great, thank you. Candace?
Sure.
Would you like to report?
Happy to report. So in the capital budget of this year, there was $2,500 allocated for furniture for the patio that we're looking at right through here behind the history museum. And Christine and I met with Janet, and we have put a contract on some Hollywood tables and chairs that will probably be delivered around September timeframe. The color of them will be teak. The 3 48-inch tables will be surrounded by 4 chairs each, so 12 chairs altogether. And will be under budget. The total cost for the project to have the furniture procured, assembled, and delivered will be $3,960. And so we're very excited because we wanted to create an atmosphere on that patio where people would want to gather, have lunch, enjoy the park, enjoy the view from that area, which is quite lovely, and the plantings and that surrounding. So I'm very excited that there will be furniture there. And then during the concerts, folks can sit on the patio and enjoy the music from a different vantage point. And we'll be looking forward to getting that furniture early fall.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Christine, do you have anything to add for?
No, I have nothing to report. I have to say that Candace did a lot of legwork on researching furniture and appreciate all her work in doing so. I'm looking forward to seeing the furniture soon.
Great.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Ed, I still don't see Harry up there.
He's down
Is he?
bottom left.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Hi, Harry. Would you and Harry like to give your report on George H.P. Smith Park? You have to talk.
Sure.
Then.
Hi, Harry. I don't have any additional things from last month, other than the fact I wish again to have an agenda item in next month
Okay.
concerning the use of herbicides and pesticides in our parks. I'd like to go to work in the direction of a protocol as a commission. And also, I'm pretty disappointed with the ongoing issue that we have with the connection from the new school to Blockhouse Pond. I think they did a cursory filling in of some sunken areas, but they really didn't address the issue. And I just feel like they're going to keep kicking it down the road, and that's soon going to become very active. And I think it's going to be extremely detrimental to Blockhouse Pond. So that's it.
So I did have a conversation briefly with Charlie O'Donnell from GMB, and we're going to going to arrange an on-site meeting with the contact Zach from for the school construction project. So hopefully we'll get that set up in the next couple of weeks.
In advance of that, if you could ask for some construction drawings for what their plans are, because if what they have there now is what they figure is permanent, I'm going to have to go to DENREC or something, because it's just no way that's acceptable under any standards that I've found in stormwater management in the state of Delaware. So,
Okay.
thank you.
See what I can get.
And there should be plans on planning commission's section of the city website when all this was submitted. So there should be like, this is what was proposed,
Well,
and then this is what we're seeing.
yeah, they didn't really supply any technical construction drawings.
It was
Even-
discussed.
Oh yeah, I was there. It was discussed, but we've never seen even preliminary drawings. And there are no technical drawings in any information under DENREC or even under Sussex County that allows to do what they are doing. And I just think they're gonna wait till it's too late. Once that becomes active and they tie that school in, we're not gonna be able to fix it, and it'll be our problem.
So I'll get that. We'll get that scheduled. Thank you, Ed. Harry, is there anything else that you would like to add on activities at the park?
Well, we met with the Friends of George H.P. Smith Park twice. And each meeting there was just a lot of miscommunication and reluctance on their part to follow the city guidelines and get an official contract agreement of their role in the park. They have ignored the wildflower garden that they put in, and they still keep quoting that they were told not to come in the park again as their excuse. And the wildflower garden is now 6 or 8 feet high with weeds, and there's some wildflowers in there. So that we brought up those things in the meetings, and they just don't want to move forward. So it's a sad situation there, because there's a lot of very positive people that want to get something done. And is one of the people who had requested Lorna, when she was a commissioner, to file for a state marker for Blockhouse Pond. And we received notice that the marker is in the process of being made, and it's just a question of when and where. And I think Janet's already set up a meeting we're going to have with the mayor about that. So things are moving forward, even though they aren't. And as far as the fill that they were supposed to fill from the settling of that pipe that they installed, just imagine that they took smooth ground. I mean, it had little swales and dips in it, but it was smooth, which means if you were walking across it, you wouldn't fall into a 6-inch hole or a little mini ravine. They came in and they filled about 1/2 of the settling that existed. They cut the grass, then they filled in the settling, and did just as Ed said, a cursory job on it. If that's the attention to detail they're paying to our pond, when we originally had this meeting with them, they assured us that the water would be cleaner when it went into the pond than when it would rake across the ground. And when we questioned the fact that they were draining parking lots into this, they assured us that this water would be cleaner because DNREC had signed off on their efforts. And as Ed says, we can't find any reference that DNREC has approved or there's a plan in held. And then the exit pipe that goes into our pond does not have a collar on it. So it's just a pipe underground, loose. And that's not the way DNREC wants a pipe finished that goes into a pond these days. So they're not really giving us our due on this. And it's very disappointing because they want to be good neighbors and they keep saying that phrase. And I'm not seeing that right now. We also met with George Smith's wife, and then I met with the mayor and the man in charge of the Lewes, I forget the term, organization, and they're planning some form of a dedication to George in the park. They're going to try to do that in September. And Ed and I had brainstormed a series of ideas, suggestions. We forwarded that to Janet, and Janet will forward it to the mayor and the council. That's about it. Oh yeah, when we met with Mrs. Smith, we talked to her about a lot of ideas, and it's very heartwarming to think that we're going to finally have something in the park that will acknowledge George Smith and why the park is named after him and the effort that he contributed to this city for all of those years of public service. That's it.
I think Anne Marie's at the podium and has something.
Yes, so the planning office should have the approved stormwater management plans in our office. So they are available, and I know Charlie O'Donnell has reviewed them. So I know that they're approved by DNREC because they wouldn't have been authorized to start construction if they weren't. So, you know, if we need to ask some questions of DNREC, we can do that as well. But I can assure you they do have approved stormwater plans and that the city has a copy.
And they're online.
They're not online. The plans that are online were the ones that were going through the review process. So we could have Janelle pull them and make them available to come in and look at them. And come on here, can I just add? We're having some camera difficulties. We have these wonderful cameras that were installed, and for some reason they're not talking to the computer to come through on Zoom, which is why you're looking at the backs of the audience and the commission from afar. So we do have our technology people who installed everything coming in later this week, and we're working this out, but this whole in-person and Zoom seems much harder than from when we went to all remote. So.
Anne Marie, I just had one question too, because Harry had mentioned the Friends getting that historical marker for Blackout Pond going, and you haven't signed anything yet, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
I was not aware of it until I saw emails last week.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Trina Brown, X 504 DuPont Avenue. I just wanted to mention to Mr. Harry and everyone was that Lewes African American Heritage Commission had early on was considering something as far as more of a recognition to George H.P. Smith and his dedication to the city. And it would be nice, or I was wondering if Harry could kind of include us in that so that we can, help promote whatever is going on with that.
Yes, we can certainly do that. Thank you. And I think it's important when we're talking about dedications and historical perspective to include the commission in those discussions as well. So thank you. As we move forward. Judy, since I'm up on the screen there and on Zoom, do you have a report for recreation?
I met with Harry, yourself, and Ed, and we talked about just what Harry said at George H.P. Smith, just to introduce me to the park. Talked about creating a plan to have a pavilion installed. So I think that's kind of all in discussion right at this point at the park, and doing some repair work or for the old pavilion that's over by the block pond, and getting some new grills. So we had that quick little meeting to introduce me to the park. And I guess my next, one of the things that's on the agenda is to talk about the pickleball courts and striping. So I guess I'm going to wait to hear what Barry and Rodney say about that. But I also started some research on our request to do a can-do playground over by the library. And the person that I know from Wilmington, who is a Rotarian, contacted the Pete Booker, who is the past president of the Rotarians here. And he felt that that Pete and that group would really like to help us if we decide that we are going to go ahead with a can-do playground. So I'm kind of just putting feelers out right now. I don't know how much faster I should go, or I need to reach out to do other things. So I'm really feeling just new and learning a lot as I'm going along.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Candace, you have a question?
I think during our last meeting, you were going to explore size and scale of that playground. And so we could determine parking question, because the land adjacent to the library is only 0.77 acres. That's the size of the plot that's available there. And any use of that would have to include parking for the people that use that area. They couldn't assume that the library parking lot would be accessible there for them. So I think scale and size really need to be discussed before we look at that piece of land as a given.
I have a question. Do you really feel that the parking lot wouldn't accommodate visitors to the playground?
It's from the standpoint that the library parking lot is full with library users. There are only 55 spaces in that lot. And so putting additional burdens on that area would not be appropriate.
When you say 55 spaces, does that include all the parking where the trailhead thing is?
No, I'm only including the parking that's closest to the parcel of land we're discussing, which is the library parking spaces. So if you're talking about handicapped individuals and you're talking about accessible space, you're certainly not looking at space that's further away from the accessible area. So, and the parking spaces that are adjacent to the library are staff spaces along that side of the library. So those are not available for that purpose. So any plans for a park in that area has to include parking.
Okay.
Hi, Matt Carter, West Ventures, Lewes. For any help on the Can Do Playground, we have a masonsmobilitymission.com where we would love to be a part of that. And you know, we had a very good team following us with a lot of information, a lot of people who can help planning. And we just wanted to extend that help to you. If you would reach out to us at masonsmobilitymission.com, and my wife Sarah will love to talk to you about that, because that's been on our agenda for a long time, trying to bring a can-do playground to this area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. It might be worth taking a look at the playground, having a playground inspection done for Canalfront Park. I think, I don't know, Barry, if you know how old that, or Rodney, how old that equipment is.
I would know how old the equipment is.
Yeah. Because I've been
Probably
down.
18 years at least.
Yeah, it's had a lot of wear and tear. There have been some pieces that have broken off, so that might be another option to consider that location, but we'd have to get a playground inspection and see what that tells us, and if it does need to be replaced, then perhaps we can look at a can-do playground and replace that, because we just had George H.P. Smith phase 1 done. I see you, Harry.
Thank you.
And we're going to phase 2. So, all right, Harry, I'm done. You're up.
Thank you, Janet.
The only thing I was going to mention, and I understand Candace's concern, and I recognize that, there is a driveway that goes on the highway side of the library, and there are several parking spaces behind the library that I imagine are for drop off and for staff. That probably can be extended without a lot of mechanical change. And that could just run the length of that. I don't know how many spaces a can-do playground should have. I'm not familiar, but there is a driveway already started there. And I would recommend we look there first. They've got the best bathrooms. They've got the newest facility. They have a children's library. So a can-do playground would tie right into the resource that the county offers in that library of ours. If we were to look at Canalfront Park, the parking lot's gravel. A lot of the walkways are gravel, and that wouldn't go along with an ADA
Right.
playground.
Mhm.
So I think we probably will have enough room to have a can-do over by the library. I think it would just be a feather in our caps to see if we could get it there. That's all.
The land you're
Thanks,
mentioning is not part of the city parcel of land there. That the land that the library leases extends well into that green area. And so the city parcel, the 0.77 acres, is near the Verdon property. And so that area that you're speaking about is not available for a playground.
Good. Knowledge is power.
I mean,
I have a question. Does the camping playground have to be segregated from normal playground?
I do not know.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, does a can-do playground have to be segregated from a normal playground? That is, if you're looking for the opportunity to introduce that into what the city has to offer, you may not want to go look for a separate site. You also may want to see how you could integrate it with some of the playgrounds that we have.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too, and I don't know how much space you need for the additional equipment, but the playground at H.P. Smith Park has several open areas that would be, we know we want swing sets at some point, but I think there's probably area where you could put another
another set of equipment, I just don't know how much space you would need. Because that's right next to the parking lot that's paved and all that, so we're thinking we put in ADA compliant sidewalks in leading up there at some point, that's part of the long-term plan, so.
Well, actually, that will be done hopefully by the end of this year. The new ADA sidewalk and the swing sets, the swing set has been ordered. And we're replacing the fence and putting in a pavilion, so it's under development. It's phase 2 of the playground project. It got delayed because of COVID. As many things have.
Is there room left for more equipment in one of the areas?
I think we'd have to look at, you know, the size of the equipment. I'm not familiar with the size of the equipment, so. Harry?
The biggest problem for Smith Park, we don't own that land. That's a lease from the school district, and we don't have a bathroom. We have a single porta potty that we pay for, but it's not even handicapped. The second porta potty is seasonal that the farmer's market pays for, and it would be wonderful. We've asked for it several times that we could have handicap toilet porta potties on our site rather than just regular ones. But I don't think that would be a very welcoming situation for a can-do. I think we should have a proper bathroom, and a handicap toilet would be excellent.
This is Judy. Should I be contacting the playground, some playground people to start asking these questions at this point?
Well, I think, I mean, it seems like people agree that the can-do is a good direction to go in to open access to people and individuals of all abilities. But I think there's a lot of unanswered questions about the size of it. So that might be a good starting point, and then looking at location based on the size of the
I'd
area
be happy to start the process.
that the equipment needs.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm wondering if that would be a capital improvement project, depending on the cost of the equipment and the installation of it and the preparation of the ground. So those are all things that we have to consider.
Well, I did a little, I was curious because I know that Rehoboth just approved having the tot lot playground. I guess they're redoing the whole thing. And that was about $275,000 worth of equipment and, you know, and grounds work. So but I didn't look into who was, you know, what groups they were, or what organizations, professional organizations they were using, or the companies that they've talked to. But I just didn't know how far to go with this, not knowing if it's something that we're going to continue to pursue.
Well, I think there's certainly interest in it. I just think we don't have enough information. So
right,
if we can get information on size, cost, you know, how to prep the area, that sort of thing, and then we can continue discussions.
Okay.
Thank you.
That makes sense to me.
All right, Marty, tree report.
Okay, thank you. The large olive tree in 1812 Park came down. Turns out its root system was seriously compromised. Janet Warren and I met the homeowner right next to where the holly was about a replacement tree. Provided a lot of shade for his privacy for his house. So we're going to do further research and The goal is sometime this fall or winter, replace the tree, possibly with more than one tree. See what we come up with. And I've continued to do tree tag maintenance and arbor scope updating, light pruning and inspections. That's it.
Thank you. Rodney?
Yes, Canalfront Park. We have had 3 dead service berries have been removed. They continue to do pruning. This week they'll do it on the bayberries. Because of the time of year to do that. And they'll continue spot reading because it's time of year to do that. The other thing is that they've completed the supplemental irrigation for the containers down under the arbor. That is working with Lewes and Bloom, and then with the friends of the Canalfront Park who are paying for that. The last thing is that Patrick went out and added a manual shut-off for the zone, for irrigation zone for overfalls, because they wouldn't be able to shut it off if they were having an event or have people there.
Oh, sure.
And didn't want it to come on and rain on their parade. So that's a manual shut-off that's in the system.
I was in the park today and I believe there's a leak in the water fountain again. So, yeah, so that's on the list. Bear told me about it this morning. I went over and I looked at it and it doesn't appear to be an irrigation issue, so calling to have that looked at. Anything else, Rodney?
That's all, thank you.
Okay, and there was there a report from the Friends group or
No.
nothing additional? Okay. Barry, Great Marsh Park.
I think I reported on most of this in the past. We have engaged a number of professionals to help us assess and begin to manage what we have out there. Bartlett Tree was out. We also had State Forest we reported on before, and both of those groups gave me some ideas as to how to get started. We're beginning to try to map out the park. We have access to some GPS through Janet, one of our interns. So we're beginning to do that. At one of our previous meetings, probably about a year ago, I presented sort of an outline of what a master planning process involved. I'm happy to come to the next meeting and share that with everybody again, just so that you kind of know what our game plan is in terms of the process of coming up with a master plan. And obviously it starts not only managing what we have, or finding out what we have and assessing it, but also coming up with some guidelines or goals and objectives as to what the purpose of the park is, whether it's preservation, passive recreation, active recreation, or whatever. So I will bring that to the next meeting, so that everybody kind of knows what I can.
Okay. I think I believe everybody knows that the city did do a survey. I think it was back in 2017. We might want to do another, but that's something that we can discuss as we move forward with the master plan. That survey was predominantly the desire for passive recreation in the park. Okay, do you want to talk about public art and actually the pickleball subcommittee?
Oh yeah, the pickleball subcommittee has spent a number of months looking at the possibility of placing pickleball courts somewhere in or close to the city of Lewes, we've really completed all of our work. We checked out a number of sites, and that report will be submitted to this group at our next meeting. So I don't really want to discuss what we've done at this point, but that'll be a full report of all the sites we looked at, why we didn't choose them, or what we found out about all the different sites and our recommendations to this group.
Hey, Janet, could I just ask Barry to speak into the microphone?
Do I need to repeat that?
Pardon?
Do I need to repeat the whole thing?
I just, yeah, it really said, I got the part where I know you were looking at locations, but at the end, they're going to present the report. Did you say?
Yes, I said at the end that we will come up with a report that we will send out to all the commissioners for them to look at and review, and then I will present that at the next meeting, and it will list all the sites that we looked at and what the disposition of each site was, or what our findings were, and at the end of that report will be our recommendation to this group as to how we proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you. Warren, 1812 and Mary Vessels.
Marty gave the report on the tree in 1812. Came down. Also, the sign, the historical sign was damaged. I don't know if that's been removed yet. You know.
No, it has not. I spoke with Taylor last week. I know he did come out and look at it, but it does have to be removed and straightened. So I will follow up with that.
And other than that, Lewes and Blue patrons are taking care of the plants. They're growing well. But that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you, Warren. I think that takes us through our commissioners' reports, so we can move on to item D1 under old business. An update from the Public Art Committee, review of the request to place mosaic pieces in the gardens at Canalfront Park and George H.P. Smith Park. You may remember, I think it was at our April meeting, we had a presentation from Sue Sandmeyer to do mosaic pieces for the pollinator gardens, and that was sent to the Public Art Committee for review, and I will turn it over to Barry and Rodney to discuss that.
Okay, the mosaic projects was presented very much in the same way to Public Art Committee. There was a lot more detail given in our meeting in terms of colors and additional drawings. So we had a lot more information to make a decision on. The Public Art Committee was very much in favor of the project. However, they approved it with a number of conditions with the project, and mostly associated with the location and height, so that it wouldn't stick out in in different times of the year, like in the winter, and so that it would blend in with the gardens more. The Public Art Committee created a contract in concert with the city attorney that listed those conditions, and as a part of that contract, the individual commissioner of each park will meet with the artist and member of our committee, Heidi Lowe, to look at placement and manage how it's going to be installed and that kind of stuff. And the mosaics are going to be a gift to the city, and then at a certain point, that was the only action item that we had in the public art. Just a couple things I want to mention. I think I mentioned this at some of the other meetings. Our newest project that has been installed is Cape Cod Effervescence in Smith Park. It seems to be very well received. It's there are pictures of it at different places. You just Google Cape Cod Effervescence, you'll find pictures of it, but it's much better to go and see it in the park. If you want to know where it is, it's sort of behind where the farmer's market is, back by the school end of the park. It's a very creative sculpture. It's plastic bottles that are painted and wrapped in colored mesh. It's a lot different than our other project, which is the rocks. It's called Bounded, but some people like the rocks, some people don't. But yeah, that's the important thing. And then there's one other project that we did last year, which was the mural project, which is still up, and that will be up for a total of 18 months. And we will revisit that after 18 months as to whether we're going to paint over it, get another mural, or whether it's, needs to be changed or replaced. I just like to read one thing that our chairman came up with. I think it's really important for people to really understand art, and we decided to put this plaque up at the rocks, especially since there was so much controversy about it. This installation is simply an invitation to let your mind do a bit of wandering. It is a starting point for you to explore your thoughts while you're taking in the sculpture and its surroundings. Sometimes it resonates, sometimes not. You will have a successful art appreciation experience if you simply notice what crosses your mind and do not try too hard to figure out what it is supposed to be or what it is supposed to mean. Come back again, as each encounter is a bit different. We believe art is about what it does, not what it is. So I'll end with that. I thought that was very well put.
Can I ask a question, going back to the mosaics? Did you say that they'll be given to the city and then eventually the city will give it back to the artist? Is that what I heard?
Well, that's in the contract, they're a gift to the city.
I think it's a gift to the city, and then the city can ultimately decide if they want to uninstall them, if they want to move them, they can do whatever they want.
Okay, I thought I heard you say. Okay, next question. I was involved with the Bridge Mosaics, and they actually have a program to inspect them every week and make repairs, clean them, whatever. Is there going to be a process of that? That's in the contract.
So the contract was reviewed by the city attorney and approved. So I just, it has not been signed yet. So once it's signed, then they can start their work. And as Barry said, they'll work with the respective park commissioners. So Ed and Harry and Rodney on placement of the structures, mosaics. Okay, thank you. This brings us to new business item E1. Presentation, discussion, and possible action on the business plan for No Shoes Beach Bonfires to provide services at Beach 1 and Beach 2. We have Cassidy Gallo here with us. And I think we're bringing up your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, good. Can y'all hear me online? At all?
Well,
Yes.
You're good. You're good. Oops, I just opened it
While
twice.
we're doing that, I'm Cassidy Gallo, and I'm from Greenwood, Delaware. About a month and a half ago, I had the chance to meet with Kay, Janet, and the mayor. So I'm local, I was born and raised in Delaware. That's just kind of just my introduction for y'all there. I'll also get that set up, but.
Yeah, I need. Okay. I don't like this. Oh, okay.
Okay, are we good? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so like I said, I met about a month and a half ago with Janet and Kay and the mayor and had this business proposal idea for them. They brought up some very good points that I would not be aware of if I'm not sitting on a council like y'all are right now. So the idea of it is to provide a service within the guidelines of what is already allowed on the beaches at Lewes, which is the bonfires. So it's more of a service, not necessarily permitting. So for example, there's a company down in Florida that does the same thing who I reached out to just to ask what their guidelines were with their local commissioners and their local parks and rec. And she told me it's very similar to Delaware as far as the environment goes and those types of things go. So that's something we had discussed. And after reviewing it a little more, I really looked a little deeper into the issues and the resident concerns as long as with the parks and rec concerns. So essentially, I don't know if any of you've got the chance to review this, but it would provide just experience on top of a bonfire. So you can provide the bonfire. I would set up the bonfire, I would break down the bonfire, I would take care of trash removal, I would take care of setup. I would be within 15 minutes radius on site per se. Should anything happen, there won't be anything left, because I know you raised that concern and Ms. K raised that concern as far as just trash, just really big trash issue on the beaches after the weekend. So we'd really be able to be things for a birthday party. Again, something small and intimate is really what I'm going for. Like I told Janet before, she raised some concerns about just having something get out of hand, having police have to be on site more, the types of things that come with more people in one spot like that. So for this, it's really just to provide that experience. It's to provide an intimate way for family-friendly enjoyment here at the beaches. So it's something that is done in Florida right now, and they've been pretty successful with it. But could you go to the next slide now, please? Like I said, the environmental impact is something that was raised. However, what is already outlined is that we cannot use wood that would harm the environment. We can't use anything that's not natural. We can't burn trash, all those things that we have issues with. So that's why I have on there my example, as the South Walton Fire District, they only allow a certain number of permits a night, just like Ms. Janet told me before. So that's not something I'm asking to go outside the scope of. So again, to be clear, I want to say within the scope of what's provided, but providing service on top of that, if that makes sense. As far as I know, I think tiki torches are like a no-go here. But I did include that just in case I couldn't remember if I was remembering that correctly as far as that goes. But they do have the environmentally friendly torch fuel that you could burn. So we don't have an issue with the environment. In addition to that, I do want to and pledge to donate 10% of merchandise sales to the local coastal management programs. So I did a little research on those as far as Denver, Castle, just the coastlines, because those things are important, and I understand that you don't want to get rid of that and get rid of everything. We have nothing left. So that was the environmental impact is what I covered, and if there's something I'm missing, feel free to bring that up, and I can look into it further if you like. If not, we can move on to the next slide, as you said, reviewed it already. But as you see on there, the services offered would be set up, right down, clean up. I would have a trash can available, a galvanized trash can right there that I would remove at the end of the evening. I would have, like I said, the tiki torches, possibly local takeout, cracked sodas, s'mores, et cetera, those types of things that I know are becoming more common down the coastline. I've seen a little bit of that go on right now. So really that's kind of the gist of what I would want to provide. And it's just something that I really wanted to get before you all, because you all have those things that I don't know about. Like I said, I didn't know a lot until Ms. Kay brought it up to me. So that is what I would have as far as services go. Again, it's really something that I want to keep intimate. I'm not looking to create a frat party on the beach. That's what Dewey's for. So it's just, I don't really want to have that, but it is something that piques my interest, and I just wanted to get in front of you all and see what your thoughts were on it and see what I could do possibly for that. Can you go to the next slide, please? They did raise the resident concerns, which is why I decided to request to do beach 1 and 2, as they have bathrooms and there's no private homes right up on that beach. You don't have to use the dune crossings for that. And as there's a parking lot for both beach 1 and beach 2, I know it's a little distant, but I tried to include it best I could. I know there was already some issues down the other beach, or some concerns as far as the locals go, as far as dune crossings and just trash and dirty diapers, that whole thing. So I figured looking at beach 1 and 2, as there's already bathrooms and there's parking, so that would be an issue, I don't believe. And like I said, there's no private homes right up on that. So that was the main reason for that. Again, it would be within the same guidelines of the off season, start at 4, I believe, and then the on season, I think 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Each would go 3 hours, none would go past 10, as the bathrooms are only open until 10 o'clock. So that is really, like I said, the gist of that. And in regards to any type of defacing property, which Ms. Kay brought up, that there tends to be, I think you said, turned over benches and just, it's really just destroying stuff for no reason. I want to include a waiver in my paperwork for that, other than just me, damage to my property per se. If there's any damage to the beach, the property, the bathrooms, any types of those things, the credit card kept on file will be charged. And that money will in turn go back into Parks and Rec. It can go back into the city council, whatever they essentially damaged, it would go back in. That way you can have some type of pullback from if they do destroy something that they shouldn't destroy anyway. But instead of just, slapping a fine, you at least get some money back on that. So that was my main push when I really thought about the concerns that were raised, just because I do understand that. Like I said, I understand you can't have that. You can't have it destroyed. If we do, we have nothing left. So really, in conclusion, that's kind of a quick run through of what I had. I'm more than willing to put something like that on for anybody who wants to sit through it. That way, before you make a final decision on it, and if once you sit through it, you still feel like it's not something you're comfortable with or want to do, then we can say we discussed it. So that's really my main push. I really appreciate you all having me in here, and Janet for setting it up. But if you guys have any questions that I can answer, I'm all ears.
I have a question. You're not really asking to be able to do anything you can't already do on the beach without a permit. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
You're just asking to be able to provide service?
Conduct business, yes.
Okay.
Because I spoke to the business license local, and they said that essentially that's not something we can give a business license for, because it's not storefront. Essentially, it's a service. So that's when they pointed to Janet, and then we kind of went from there. But my main concern with it was we have so many people coming from out of state, tourists, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania. They're not going to be hauling that stuff down in campers. Essentially, they're just coming to go to the beach and go up and have a good time later at bars. And that's really what it is. But I just wanted to see if we could provide a more tame element, I guess, and a little more intimate setting for that. And like I told Miss Janet, it's something that I'm willing to work with the city over as far as calendar dates, openings, those types of things. And that's something that I could include in the clause as far as not all dates will be available, not all dates, really the same clause that they have in Florida. It's essentially that the dates might not always be available because you all are privy to things I'm not as far as the calendar goes, which I understand from listening the past hour. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this that I didn't realize. But like I said, it's really just something that I want to get out here, and the answer is what it is, but I just wanted to make sure that I actually got in front of council and really try to figure this things out.
Yeah, I just have a few questions about sort of how this would work. I mean, you said you don't want it to be a big frat party experience and want it small. How would you actually regulate that?
By being on site.
You turn people away?
If they're not on the name, I would have them, they need to have their last name. It would be an online type of reservations, and if there's more than what was on there.
But how many, what would be the maximum number you would?
I would not like to go past 12, just because to keep kind of a small friends group, families. I don't want to be so small and say 4, because some families are bigger than 4. So I don't want to exclude, a family that could be bigger than 4. But like I said, you already don't permit alcohol on the beach, and that's something else that I would have in the clause. If alcohol is found, those types of things, if it's on site, it will essentially just come out of your debit card. That will stay on file until it's concluded. So much like any other type of service.
Is the size of the party limited now by the city? Did you have a bonfire?
So we have up to 25 people is $25, but you can have more than 25 people, and that is a $50 fee for a bonfire. We typically do not get over 25 people. So they're typically $25.
And the city, because the Lewes Yacht Club has dates and bonfires and things, and they get a permit from the city to do it. Management. So you're not asking for anything that people already can't do.
No, I'm just asking to provide a service on top of it.
Right.
Well, along those lines, I see you ask, say you want to bring a generator to run lights, and that's not permitted now, is it?
We have not permitted generators, just not for lighting. If there is a wedding on the beach, they might have a battery operated Bluetooth for the limited time of the ceremony, but not large generators. We don't permit tents on the beach, Kay, any other thoughts that you have on what is permissible on the beaches? I mean,
well, because size and alcohol does, I think, can get out of hand. I mean, how many permits have you issued so far this year?
This year, as of today, it's over 210 permits. We have had permits submitted from people coming from California, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, Jersey. So people from out of state do bring, they know what the rules are, and they're prepared. And
it's clearly popular, and I don't know that we've ever kept track as much as probably now. Maybe this is sort of post-pandemic exhilaration or whatever.
Well, I think last year it got very popular because it was a way for people to be outside.
Yes.
You could still socially distance.
Yes.
So I think the bonfires became very popular in the midst of COVID because it was a way to see people and be outside and be safe. So I am now, for Anne Marie, keeping track on a monthly basis of how many permits, and that's in the monthly report for mayor and city council. But I did look at what I have this morning, and as of we're in the middle of July, and we have over 200 bonfire permits. And I will say that they do go through the fall. So what?
Well, I did notice, I think it was on the I Love Lewes site, maybe a month ago. Someone said, you know, I'm doing bonfires on the beach. So I think it does open the door to what is going on, and the fact that the person who put in that ad had no permits, had talked to no one. And I think when contact was like, well, I didn't really need it. Well, but there was an ad on Facebook for it. So I think this is an important question because it opens the door to other things. And what is the vision for beaches 1 and 2? I mean, I've only been on this since April. So I'm just beginning on this. I think that bonfires are a great activity. I know when we would go to Cape Hatteras for many years as a family, then you had to bring your lumber and do it that way, the old fashioned way, but we did it every week. We loved it. We planned activities around, you know, the tides so that you could do it. And that was many years ago. So I get how popular this is, and this is going to be the highlight of some people's vacation for sure. But I think we need to be very careful when people are just random people are advertising that it's the business. That really surprised me.
That, I would argue that's a good reason. Somebody who is a vendor who offers a service that would also manage that situation. That's not opening a door for me, that's adding another level of control.
Well, where it adds a door for me is vendors on beaches 1 and 2. We're only talking about 1 and 2. We're not talking about
Correct.
Anywhere else. And so that's my position. Is what I hear is no commercialization on beaches 1 and 2. We have the Lions Club Snack Shack, which is 100% charity. And the vast majority of the public who I've spoken to, and I know in 2019, when the city held a workshop about what to do on the beaches, that was what I heard, loud and clear.
Okay, do you think it would be wise to have another public meeting to get input from the public about this issue? I'm wondering if we should go ahead and have a workshop on it and see what the current thoughts are.
I don't know. I mean, the question is does city staff have time to help me put it together? Because it's not easy to put something together like a workshop. That was, it was an intensive workshop with a survey afterwards. And then it is very helpful. You do want to hear what people think because you need to be a reflection of the community. If city staff has time to help, I would say no commercialization is my vision. Based on what I hear from the public.
I looked at that survey, and I have to say, I don't think we need the same level of survey that we did. That survey, to me, was more than it needed to be, if you actually. I think the survey that was done before was far more extensive than what was needed.
Well, surveys are hard. Surveys are very hard. It's hard to know how to ask the questions so that you're not, by the nature of the questions, skewing the answer.
Well, the answers were skewed. The answers, the questions were skewed. So right there, I think some of the questions, the most important question was skewed. So I can go over it with you if you want, but I'm not convinced that the survey was the best way to go with that one. But do you think we should have another public workshop? Another way to get more public input on how people feel now, because people were largely against it back then, to a large extent. And now I'm thinking, even if we're talking about having Bluetooth out there until 10 o'clock, there are some residents nearby, and water, as you know, sound carries over water and the beach kind of curves around. I don't know how people would feel about it.
Kay, what do you mean by no commercialization?
What
does that mean? I really want kind of a definition as to what that is. It's
Yeah.
hard for me to wrap my head around it sometimes.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that what people said at that hearing and what people have said to me since is they want the beach to be different from the other beaches in our communities, except for perhaps the northern beaches, which are peaceful and quiet. And I think that's something that people like about the residential beaches, is that it's just you and whatever you bring. And if there are people who, I don't know, wreck their umbrella and end up wanting to rent one, you have a snack shack, and that is a completely charitable organization. They raise, the last time I heard it was almost $33,000 that goes to the local community, and that's all proceeds. So that's what I mean.
We have somebody that provides service on the beach now, kayaks.
But that's not in beaches 1 and 2. I'm only beaches 1 and 2.
So you can't take a kayak on beaches.
You can, but you have to be outside the guarded areas. You can't kayak through the swimming area. You can go on the outside.
But other than the generators, I don't see her doing anything different that I couldn't do myself.
Right.
I can take the kids down there until 10 o'clock. I can stay on the beach till midnight myself. At least it would be a good way for us to keep track of the bonfires and be able to follow up if something's left behind. And she's not going to have a physical presence other than the setup and dismantling of the service. So she's not doing anything that I couldn't do myself right now with a permit.
That was actually just something else on the right. My thought was, right now, we're not telling people they can't go on the beach with small Bluetooth. We're just telling them they can't go out with a big massive one without, say for a wedding or a party or something like that. So that was, glad you brought that point up because I was going to ask about it.
Anne Marie?
I do just want to make a point to say that outdoor amplification is not permitted without a permit at all. So even if people bring their small Bluetooth speaker, technically the code doesn't allow it.
And that is something in my vision plan that I'm gonna have to work up, because I saw him again. There's a man who brings a suitcase-sized speaker on Saturdays. It's like, you know, so especially on a crowded day, I'm thinking. But you know, it'll be a matter of organizing rules for what's okay in a large crowd and figuring out a way to enforce, because the lifeguards have their hands full. The beaches are crowded and there's lots of kids in the water. And that's where their attention really needs to focus.
Trina?
Yes, I have a question.
Could you come up? Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. Is there currently a radius that the bonfires have to be from other?
There really is not, and we don't, for weddings, for bonfires, for any events on the beach, if it's a birthday party or a employee family day at the beach, there's no reservation of a spot per se. So if you're coming down with 12 people and you want to be on beach 1, you walk out onto the beach where there is space. So there's not, and there could be, so one of the things that I try to manage, because I do all of the permits for the parks and the beaches, is how much activity, permitted activity, not just beachgoers enjoying the beach, but how much permitted activity is going on. Because there are weddings that have 100 people on the beach and chairs and everything else. And I've had situations where there's a wedding on the beach and another large group comes on the beach and there's words, right? So, and I only know that because the people that went through the process and got the permits let me know. So it really is a management tool for what goes on at the beach. So if that answers your question.
So bringing that into consideration, is there currently police patrol that would be even more required for service that may be offered? Just a question.
Well, the police do patrol, you know, up and down the beaches. I think it's something that, you know, we would have to monitor if the requests for bonfires continue to increase. That would definitely be something that we'd have to monitor. You know, weekends at Beach 1 and Beach 2 are very, very busy. I get reports on Monday morning about the trash that's on the beaches and in the parking lot. We have trash cans in the parking lot, but people don't always use them. And so with any increase in activity, we are going to have the increase of trash and sometimes bad behavior.
And my last question, and it may go towards because you're providing a service, would you have to have or provide some type of liability insurance, or the waiver covers anything, including injury or death?
I believe that. Yeah, it doesn't cover that. I believe it did.
Well, we talked about having liability insurance, I believe. Yeah, we did talk about that.
So she wouldn't have to provide anything extra as part of the service, or is that part of the city?
She would have to, you would have to get a certificate of liability insurance listing the city of Lewes as additionally insured.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I just have a question for you, Cassidy, on what is your anticipated, and I don't know if you can answer this, but anticipated number of permits that you would be requesting?
Honestly, that's really something, that's really the question, kind of really points back to the number you gave earlier, because I wasn't really aware of how many permits do go out. So that wasn't something that I really thought of since our last meeting, to be honest. But you bringing that up kind of lets me think about it now, because I wasn't sure how many you did get. I have never done this before. I thought about doing some type of survey, poll, you know, not obviously advertising that, but just to see if this were something, how many, that type of thing. Again, that goes back to the city of Lewes, and it's really in your all's hands as far as what are you going to allow me to do. It's really more so about what is the city of Lewes okay with as far as that goes. And you know your calendar. I don't know. There's a hundred things that go on in the city of Lewes that, you know, we're not aware of, but you all are. So that's really something that would really have to go back to you or whoever manages the calendar for the city of Lewes and permitting. I don't know if that helps you at all, but that's really the best I have for you now.
Thank you.
Following up on one of the statements earlier, how would you go about getting the space you want for your cornhole and whatever else you're doing? Would you go in and block off a space early in the day and make sure you had it, or what would you do?
I would go in, I was thinking as far as during the summer, obviously it's a 6 o'clock thing. I would go in probably an hour and a half ahead of time, potentially, just to kind of be there on site, and then about 30 minutes before set up wherever I can. And, you know, obviously I'm not going to at 6 o'clock. I've been out on the beaches at 6 o'clock. It's
6 o'clock p.m.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
yeah, you're not allowed to
shoot from 6 to 11.
So you're not going to go out in the morning and reserve a space and have that locked off all day?
No, I'm not going to do that. There's really no point in that, honestly, because I've done it myself. I actually did it just for myself back in April. She gave me a permit for that just to kind of run through it, and I didn't really have any issues going out there. And I don't need it. You don't need to set up that early for that kind of thing. You find a spot, and that's where you go. So,
but we wouldn't permit blocking space. We don't for weddings, any kind of beach events or bonfires. It's a public beach, so it has to remain a public beach.
Would this be a year contract to try and test it out? See, with this, between this company and the city, I mean, is that how you would go about it?
Well, I think that if the Parks and Rec commissioners feel that it should move forward, it would have to go to mayor and city council for their approval, and then they would make a determination on how they want to proceed. But it would generally be under, we have another group that's under a trial.
That's what I'm getting.
Right.
It's already been done.
It is, it's in a trial period. The first year, again, COVID kind of derailed things, so it was not an official contract. It did get brought to mayor and city council again in December. And the agreement was to do a 2-year trial with a contract. So I think, you know, we're still in that phase with that service. And don't have, you know, enough feedback to go on at this point.
So it's something
That
that we've
discussion.
already engaged in other activities,
Correct,
whether it be kayaks
correct.
or
In,
umbrellas.
right,
So this is, the only difference is they're not actually providing.
well,
Well,
what,
it's a service.
what-
Well, all service.
right, it's a service, is what's being, presented here tonight. It's not other activities, not water activities, water, you know, recreational activities. Is that your door? Right. Other comments, suggestions?
I have a couple of comments.
Who, is that Christine?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you,
Oh, okay.
Christine, go ahead.
Before Parks and Rec makes a decision on this, I think that since we have some new members on Parks and Rec, I think it would behoove us to review the 2 current agreements that the city has with commercial activity in our parks, and look at those 2.
Now, and the following message come from Geico.
I don't know what I did. I don't know what I did.
Then.
Makes it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. It's a good thing too, because having a home is hard.
Hold on, Christine, don't leave us.
Okay.
I didn't even have anything on. So why is that not? Okay, let's do this.
Oh, I think. Let me check
So
something.
let's, you know, I'm just gonna.
Wait, oh, I think we're trying to get you back on the big screen.
Yeah. Let's do this. There we go.
There you are. Okay, Christine, go ahead.
Okay, so I was in the middle of saying that we have some new members on Parks and Rec, and I don't think that they may be familiar with the 2 agreements, contracts, whatever you want to call them, for commercial activity in our parks right now. For example, you know, we have the farmers market operating commercial activity in George H.B. Smith Park. And then we have another concession stand agreement type situation that's a 2-year agreement with another service being provided at Roosevelt Inlet. And I think it would behoove us to review what the city is doing currently commercially in our parks before we go any further. I do know that both of these agreements require a $1 million liability insurance as one of the conditions, as well as some other conditions as well, for example, 4 or 5 pages of conditions. So I think it would be helpful for us to look at both of them before we make any further recommendations.
That'd be really helpful.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the city is not adverse to commercial use in our city, in our parks at this point in time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I can get that out to
Thank you.
the commissioners. Thanks.
Well, I'm gonna comment and say, I'm not so sure that reading the agreement would make me think one way or the other. I kind of leave that up to the city and vendor to work those conditions out. I would really offer no opinion about that. I think the question I'm asking myself is this something that we as a commission would find appropriate in a public park? I think that's the primary question. As you say, we already have two that, from everything I've heard, are extremely successful, popular.
But only one's in a park.
Pardon me?
Roosevelt Inlet is not in a park.
That's correct. That's correct. It's not in the park, but the public doesn't know that. And so.
But we know that. That's why we're
Yes, you
here.
do. Yes, you do. But the public doesn't know that, and the public treats it, and because I'm associated with the yacht club up there, they've been very, very good neighbors so far.
Well, and I'm glad. I'm just saying that this is, I mean, even from a zoning point of view, the difficult thing about parks in the city is almost every park has something in it. Whether it's a library, museum, there's this, at this point, Beach 2 is the only city park that is just a park. That's all it is a park. Everything else has something going on. And so I'm just saying to think about that and to see where we want to go. Do we want to be more like Rehoboth? Do we want to be more like the northern beaches? Because this is the turning point, because there's no coming back. Once you open the door, it's very difficult.
The door's already open.
That's what concerns me too, is the commercialization. And I'm very concerned about that too.
I guess I look at this from a recreational need standpoint, for more of a philosophical perspective. And there's a lot of commercial entities, commercial vendors that provide a recreation service that people want and request, and I consider that a recreational need. How we manage that and how we provide that is what we need to ask ourselves, and how can we control that? If we as a city wanted to provide all these things that are being provided by vendors, it would cost us a lot of money. But imagine if we had no commercial vendors on the beach at all. Maybe some people would like that, but there would be a lot of people that may not come here, or people would not have the kind of experience that they could have were it not for vendors that provide for a recreational need.
Okay, let me be clear. There are businesses on the canal side. I'll use an existing one, east of Mountain. That's not on beaches 1 and 2. I'm talking about just what's on 1 and 2, not restaurants, recreation vendors, people selling inflatables, all the things everybody enjoys and wants and need to pick up as they come zooming into town. It's great, we need that. The question is, what do we want on the beaches themselves? And only 1 and 2. That's all I can talk about is what's on 1 and 2. I mean, you know, clearly businesses thrive when they're doing the right thing. And we have a lot of businesses that thrive right on Cape Henlopen Drive, on Savannah Road, all of them, because they're supplying things that people need and want, and they're right where they need and want them. The question is, philosophically, what do we want to do on 1 and 2? That to me is the question.
So if I may, at the January 13th, 2020 Mayor and City Council, this discussion came up again And it was brought up that in May 2019, Deputy Mayor Papp made a motion to deny the development of commercial concessionaires on city land, seconded by Councilperson Osler and approved unanimously by the council. So what we're discussing then is going against, per se, or in light of, in opposite of what mayor and city council unanimously voted for in May of 2019.
Because of what they heard from the public.
So, I mean, that's, and I don't know that there has been anything, Anne Marie, that came after that, changing that decision by council. That I'm on.
The only thing that's come after that is the concession at Roosevelt Inlet that was done in 2020 on a provisional basis, and now with a 2-year, it's still on a trial basis, as I understand it.
Correct, right. So that's the concession at Roosevelt Inlet has been talked about since, I think, 17 or 18, and it was supposed to start under contract in 20, and it for a trial period, and it did go as a trial, but it wasn't under contract. So it's under contract now for a 2-year period, but still considered trial.
So I guess the question is, you know, Marty suggested having a public hearing or a workshop. Do we want to do that?
It sounds like we've already done that once, right?
It was done in 2019.
Well, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's gonna change, is it?
Well, the
Well,
public
it's 2
mostly
years
didn't
later.
want it, public mostly didn't want it. And so that's, maybe what we need to do is distribute the public comments to the Parks and Rec commissioners and let them see what the public said in 2019.
But to Barry's point about what's the definition of commercialization, providing a service where you have no physical, there's no building, there's no pavilion, there's no truck parked there. She's providing a service. She's making a buck doing it. Is that commercialization? She's doing things that I could do myself
But
right now.
But if you're getting paid for it, it's commercialization.
Okay, but to what detriment? We already allow all these things that she's asking to provide, except for the generators. So I just feel like we would be able to monitor it. The more we can have our hands around who is doing bonfires and who's responsible, because they're gonna happen. I just think it's better.
You already have an entity out there providing snacks, food, and rentals for things like that. The difference you're making is that because they're not making a profit, they're acceptable. And to me, that's a different issue entirely in terms of what's appropriate as a service and an activity out there on the beach. And we've heard that a lot of people want to go out in the evening and go to bonfire. And I'm not so sure that maybe entering into an agreement with a company that does that wouldn't be a smarter way to go. And if it's a provisional agreement, find out in 2 years and make your decision.
I think one concern is that if the city wants to proceed, then we get more and more requests from similar vendors, businesses, and kind of the horse is out of the barn. So where do you stop and in allowing new vendors, businesses coming in and what they have to offer? And it might be to, you know, go out to a bid and select a business, and that might be the way to do it, and then they have the exclusive.
I think that's the way the state parks do it.
Mhm.
But under our code, we can't do that currently.
I don't think we can't offer exclusivity.
Ed, can you please make sure?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't think we were able to offer exclusivity.
So I think if we go through a competitive process, we can.
Right.
And if you want to manage the number of types of service providers, I think that's the only way you truly can.
And we certainly can control the number of permits allowed, and maybe that's what we need to look at, limiting the number of permits to whomever.
Right. Just the flip side of that is then people will just do it without a permit.
Well, and that's
so
enforcement.
and that right.
It's an enforcement issue.
Right. So
we already have a problem.
Right.
Right. And then that's where we got to get Tom Spell involved. But the more permits, the more control we at least potentially have over them.
Isn't there already some commercialization with the weddings on the beach?
Yeah.
Depends on how you look at commercialization.
Yes.
I think, yes, if they're bringing in a event planner for setting up chairs and doing that, and it would be the same thing for weddings at Canalfront Park or any of the other parks.
Or caterer.
Well, the wedding permits do not, they are for the ceremony only. And I'm pretty clear with people about that when I issue the permit, that, this is not for a reception on the beach or at Canalfront Park. Now, is that to say that we've had some bad behavior and people have had a small wedding gathering in a park and somebody went by and took a picture and there were bottles of alcohol? Yes, it happens. But I think, as much as we can mitigate that, I think we need to. Harry, thank you, Christine.
So let me get this clear. Kay is talking about Beach 1 and Beach 2 only. But yet we have a trial going on with a service that includes all the beaches or exclusion of Beach 1 and 2?
It's physically separated. It's as far away from beaches 1 and 2 as it could actually get. It's out of Roosevelt Inlet.
However, there are bonfires issued by that business person that are at other locations than Roosevelt Inlet. And they may be on Beach 1 or Beach 2. They may be at one of the crossovers. Go ahead, Harry.
And the thing is, anybody, any individual can file a beach permit. Would that also include Beach 1 and Beach 2?
Yes, the current process is that anyone can go to the city website, pull up the forms, and submit a bonfire request.
So if I wanted to put an ad in I Love Lewes saying that I will help you arrange, I will be your facilitator, I will provide all of this for you and take care of it for you, that's my privilege, isn't it?
It's what?
Someone's already done it. Sure.
I'm allowed to do that. So that person putting an ad in I Love Lewes wasn't doing anything illegal or conning anyone. They were just simply offering a service.
Correct.
But we don't have much enforcement going on. We don't have much requirements going on. So when you get a permit, does the permit come with a list of cans and cannots?
Yes, it does. It includes what is permitted and not permitted per code. As far as what time you have to be off the beach, that it's a no smoking beach, that alcohol is prohibited, that everything has to be carried on and off the beach, that there's no driving on the beach. So all of those are listed in the permit. And I think the issue with other businesses hosting it is that they're not necessarily getting the permits from the city of Lewes. So then it gets to be a management issue when you have larger crowds on the beaches in the same locations, when there may also be weddings or other events going on. Yes, Harry.
And I'll give you a hypothetical. When we had a place in New Jersey, the state of New Jersey required each town to provide bathrooms in the form of portable, like porta potties, or permanent bathrooms every so many blocks. On the edge of the beach, off the beach, wherever it was convenient. But they were required to prove that they had done that in order to get state and federal monies to replenish the beach. And that was really the squeeze that each town had, but which would also create, I mean, one of the biggest complaints you get from the residents, besides noise, besides the rowdiness, besides the disturbance, is the defecation.
Well, and luckily, I'm only beaches 1 and 2. I'm not the residential beaches, and I'm really happy because that's not an issue that's going to be fixed easily or make people happy. So I'm grateful to just be for 1 and 2.
And Cassidy did, after speaking with myself and Kay and the mayor, revise her plan after hearing some of the concerns from residents of Lewes Beach, park commissioners, city staff who have to pick up the garbage, and so revised it, her business presentation, to include only beach 1 and beach 2, because there are trash cans there are bathrooms there. So that was taken into consideration, and it is just beach 1 and beach 2 that is being considered.
So, just so I understand, if there's a wedding that someone who gets a permit to have a wedding on beach 1 or 2 now, and they bring chairs out and a carpet for people to stand on and so on, and they hire a caterer or somebody to do that. That's acceptable now?
It's not always clear from the permit request that they've hired a company to do it or that they're doing it themselves.
Okay.
Sometimes they will say, I'll have an arch and a little music and that's it. We're gonna be on and off the beach in 15 minutes. So it's not always clear if they're working with an event planner. Okay. I would say if it's at the Children's Beach House, they're generally working with Children's Beach House, and that's where their reception is. But others are not that clear.
I've seen chairs delivered by rental companies, and they have to walk them out.
Right.
There were times when they would just drive on their vehicles out there and deliver them. And I complained, and that put a stop to that. So if they're gonna put 50 chairs out,
you gotta carry.
That's 25 trips. A chair in each arm, setting them up. And I would say it's not generally more than an hour, mostly because everybody doesn't want to get sweaty in their wedding dress before, they want their photos done, and then they're at the reception. And that's pretty quick. I will say, people come to a stop and go watch. So you do end up with a lot of strangers watching your wedding. But I have to say, I don't see that many weddings anymore. There was a time when every time I went, there were Wiccan weddings, there were all kinds of things. I mean, it was always interesting to see, but I would say there are far fewer weddings than ever before. And maybe that's, COVID, just fewer weddings, period.
Well, but that tells me that we have event planners already involved now, and they're making some money. So that's already happened. So what we have now is we have event planner says, I want to come build a fire, bring everything, manage it, clean it all up, and I'll get your permit for it. That's part of the service. I don't see that as a huge,
It's generally, that's generally a once and done, or a few. You're not gonna have, an event planner is not gonna have 210 bonfires. If you know what I'm saying. They're not gonna have 210 weddings. How many, I don't even know if you know this figure off the top of your head, Jen, but how many weddings versus bonfires?
It's maybe 50, and that's being generous. And they're spread out from the beach to parks. And they tend to be shorter, as you said, Kay, shorter periods of time. So,
yeah, it's a different thing.
Yeah, and if you're, there's not food, it's not, you know, they have 4 hours for the permit for a wedding. We issue it for 4 hours so that you can get your people situated, get your arch set up, your flowers, chairs if they're having them, and then the ceremony time and a breakdown time.
And photographs.
So, and photographs.
A lot of times there's photographs.
and that tells me that the city is already managing, it becomes a management issue. How do you set it up in the contract? How do you manage it? What parameters, what limitations do you put? Hours, size, whatever it is, that the city, I mean, the citizens want to put in terms of restrictions and controls on it. And that would all be done as part of the agreement to let an event planner come and bonfire. And if you have 210 bonfires, maybe the event planner would take care of 100 over the course of the year. That's, you know, that's, to me, that's not an issue. I don't know that if you're suggesting that now, if you have an event planner who comes in and builds your fire and gets rid of your permit, suddenly you're going to have 500 requests for bonfire. If that's the case, you can control it, right?
Right. Well, they're still, they are submitting the request for a bonfire on behalf of their client. So city staff is still issuing all of those bonfires. And right now we have, in the middle of July, over 210. And what is the capacity of city staff to process more coming in from businesses and event planners? Parks and Marina Administration is one.
Has the city ever gone after someone who got a permit and said, you didn't clean up your bonfire?
Pardon?
You know, how does the city manage when somebody gets a permit, has a bonfire? Do they always clean it up to your satisfaction or not?
I'm gonna
staff to know, to be honest.
I'm gonna say that we don't have the policing capacity for what we do now.
Well, with a vendor, you have somebody you can point to and say, you didn't clean that up.
But it still takes city staff to go out and identify that it hasn't been cleaned up properly. So I think it comes to a true capacity issue because it's not taking anything away from what city staff has to do.
Correct.
So,
like I would say this Sunday, beach 2 was a mess. And July 5th, beaches were pristine. You would never have known that July 4th had happened the night before. They were beautiful. So much work went into that, but I don't think it's reasonable to expect a city this size to do that every weekend. I mean, I collected a 33-gallon bag of trash this Sunday. Thankfully, it wasn't as hot as Saturday, but it was a mess. You could see the trail of trash. You know, you could see whoever was there left.
Right.
And I cleaned that up in the morning. So, and you know, the trash guys are busy, streets guys are busy, bathrooms are being cleaned, everything's happening as fast as it can.
Sure.
But We just, I mean, I am new to this park. I haven't even had a chance to get a vision thing of this. I don't have a budget. There's so many, I mean, this is just my immediate list of things that I see, including drones 10 feet off the ground and all kinds of other stuff going on. So there are a lot of things that need to get put in place. And a lot of it is staff. Nobody's really thought about the beach. It's a cash cow because of the parking lots. To be honest, it raises a lot of money, but nobody's really thought about it. And now is the time to think about it. And that's what I'm doing, is thinking about it. And it's important to me to take a breath, get a vision, and see where we're going, and go carefully, because it's not fair to businesses. It's not fair to beachgoers. It's not fair to residents to just, I don't know, that sounds like a good idea, let's go. You know, all of you all have had so many years to work on perfecting your park. You've got a vision, you've got lanes to operate in. Like right now, I'm like this because I haven't had a chance yet to set things up. I see things that could be better easily and things that could be better, but it's going to take a lot of work and manpower, and I don't know how it's going to happen. Policing is part of it. The police don't really have a lot of time to be checking on things down at the beach, other than if there's a call. If we had a webcam, that might help, so you could watch and see what's going on without having to physically go there. You know, there are a lot of things that can be done to help, but mostly I would like to get a vision crafted and approved and in place before things get out of control. That's my concern. That's where I am.
Harry?
The city has parking ticket inspectors. They have a car that's marked parking enforcement. Obviously, parking pays for those salaries and that cost. Do the bonfire permits, the wedding permits, would that afford a 10 p.m. inspector? You keep the card on record, and if it's not cleaned up, they're charged, you know, they have to put a deposit down, a $200 deposit plus their fee, and they get their $200 deposit back after the plots, their marked beach area has been inspected, either that night at 10 o'clock or the next morning.
So I think one of the several issues with that is that when permits are issued, it's for an area. So it's for beach 1 or it's for beach 2. There's no designation of an actual space. So an inspector would have to go out and just walk and see if they found something, because we don't pinpoint the location. It's beach 1 or it's beach 2 or it's Lewes Public Beach at the Washington Street crossover, or it's at Roosevelt Inlet. So I don't know that that's the answer. The other thing is, you know, you can't do it at 10 o'clock at night if you don't know where the people set up. So then you're doing it in the morning. Somebody could have already walked over hot ash and hot coals and hurt themselves, and that's a liability as well. So I don't know that, and I don't know that the permit fees would pay for that staffing position anyway. I don't know that that would be a wise use of revenue.
I will say, I've never been to Lewes Beach and been by myself. I've always heard other voices, seen cars. Even when you try, you cannot get away from it. Somebody is always
there. Yeah. Anne Marie, did you have something to?
Well, I think you're right. Currently, the current fee structure would no way pay for staffing. So if we were going to look at staffing, we're looking at a total revamp of the fees. And And I think it wouldn't just be 10 o'clock, because the other thing is how many bonfires are happening that aren't permitted.
Right.
And, you know, probably our maintenance department, the guys who do the beach rake, can tell you how many fires are not properly disposed of. Because, you know, you're supposed to use a fire pit, and you're supposed to, you know, not dispose of it in the sand. I can tell you there are many places where people dig pits and put a fire in a pit, not in a physical fire pit. You know, so if there are plenty of things that we could find if we had staff out there. But if we're going to staff some sort of enforcement, one, I don't think it's police. I think it needs to be something other than police, where, you know, if they need the police, they could call them. But I think you're talking something where the permit fees would need to be significantly adjusted.
Other discussion, comments?
Well, we're not talking about getting rid of bonfires, obviously. That's not gonna happen.
Right.
And I just think it's one more possibility that we can have some management over it. And I don't know, fires are gonna be there, just as Andrew says, they're gonna be there. So we can manage them. I'm for it.
I did want to comment real quick. Earlier, you mentioned something about generators. I spoke to the lady down in Florida, and it's a silent solar power generator. It's not loud, it's not gas. So that's another thing.
I just don't know why you need a generator, because the lights, you know, there's, even if you have lights, they're great battery powered lights.
Well, that's something I could do then.
The LED, I just.
Solar.
Well, then that's just something I could do then.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a big deal. It's just something I just adjust. No, it's not that big of a deal to do that.
Other comments? Is there a motion or?
I have just one more question.
Oh, sorry, Christine. Thank
Sorry,
you.
I did have one more question. How does how is this going to be compensated to the city? Is it per event? Will it be a $50 fee to the city every time there's a bonfire?
Correct. Every time there's a bonfire, it's a fee based on the number of people. Up to 25 is $25. More than 25 is 50.
50. Okay, thank you.
So do we want to make a determination tonight? Do we want to make a recommendation or table for further discussion, review of what we have going on now?
I make a motion that we recommend the mayor and city council allow this on a temporary basis under, just as we did with Quest, but disallow the use of any kind of generators.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I have one question. And this would still be an offer and other companies come into it.
Matt, you need to come up.
Other companies would still, outside companies would still use beach park too, if they had a permit.
Correct. Yeah, it does not change anything for what is currently taking place under contract.
Yeah, thank
And what currently, we're still in discussion.
Yes,
What
still in
currently
discussion.
takes place by outside, I'm learning a lot here too. My outside contract is on the beach.
So, well, what we have in place now with a provider under a trial basis, under contract, is water recreational rentals at Roosevelt Inlet. There's a concession.
That's the question.
It's a concession. So there is watercraft there for rent, beach chairs, umbrellas. They also have bonfires, but they do them not only at Roosevelt Inlet. It's Beach 1, Beach 2, and all of Lewes Public Beach, right? So,
Because they have agreement with the state to do this.
but for the shack, yes, they had to have approval from DENRA to place the shack. Any other discussion? So we have a motion from Ed to make a recommendation to mayor and city council to allow the bonfires to be permitted through business on a provisional basis and not to include generators. I think we previously discussed, Cassidy, with you, the not using the tiki torches as well, so I would add that.
Yes, and that's just something I had on the presentation, but just kind of kept it up there.
Okay.
Until we were here, but yeah, I can revise as needed, it was an idea that I wanted to put in place.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask one more clarifying question? What is the current, is there any current standard as far as providing artificial lighting for whatever's going on parties or weddings? Is it allowed?
There really isn't, weddings are not done after dark. I think the bonfires are the only thing that are done after dark, and there's not been any provision for artificial lighting. There's never been a request for it. It's not something that I'm asked for in a permit or people want to do, as far as I know. You know, once they get the permit, they might bring that out there. And again, the policing is the difficulty.
I'm just wondering how that would be handled, because I know there are concerns about light pollution and so on and so forth. I don't know if that would be effective. I'm just curious.
I think it could be, depending on how bright the lights are. I think if there, as it was discussed previously, there are houses, residences right on the other side of the parking lot. We've had comments about the lights in the parking lots themselves. So, I mean, I think it could become an issue. Any other discussion? Warren?
I would just like to say, I think you should examine the fee structure. I think $25 hardly is enough for the amount of paperwork that you have to do this.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Warren. Other discussion, comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
You want to do a roll call?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's too hard, so, yeah. Okay, opposed?
I will vote opposed because this is my assignment to provide a vision for the speech. My vision is, at this point, no commercialization. I don't want to open a door that we cannot close later. And I think that this is not appropriate for what citizens have made quite clear. They want Lewes Beach to remain free of commercialization.
Thank you. Candace?
I'm voting aye, because I think it might lend some supervision over the bonfires that are currently happening and give some accountability where at the moment there isn't possible staffing bandwidth to do such a thing.
Thank you. Ed?
I vote aye, for the same reasons as Candace, and the bonfires are already happening. It'd be better.
Thank you. Marty?
I vote no. I'm concerned about further commercialization of the beach. I chose to live in Lewes largely because it is not remote, it is not doomed. There are, beaches are relatively uncommercialized compared to a lot of other beaches, and I like it that way. I don't think this will do anything to change change the current bonfire situation. It will add more bonfires on top of what's going on now. People that are doing it now will continue doing it, and won't hire anybody else to do it. So I don't think it'll help on that score, so. I don't know.
Thank you. Rodney?
I vote aye.
I vote aye, because we're already using vendors. I understand the difference between each one and each two, but the one of the beach, so that's why.
Thank you. Warren?
I vote aye. I think some professionalism is good.
Thank you. Christine?
I vote nay, only because I think a further review of our current contracts with the city's use of commercialization of our park should be reviewed. I'm not adverse to the monitoring of bonfires on the beach, and overall it's probably a good idea, but we have people on Parks and Rec who are not familiar with the current contracts, so I vote nay.
Thank you. Judy?
I'm going to vote nay just for the reason that Christine said. I really would like to see the contracts we have in place now, and how it would coordinate with what you're permitting at this point too.
Thank you. Harry? You're muted.
Yeah, I vote aye, as long as this is a 2-year trial basis and we're going to get some result out of it at the end, and then we can determine it. Yeah, I think it'll be helpful.
Thank you. So we have 6 yes, 4 opposed, motion carries. So we will put forth a recommendation to mayor and city council for their next meeting. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion and comments.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
That brings us to the end of our agenda. If there's no other discussion or comments, I
Make a motion. Second.
Rodney, thank you, Ed. We are adjourned at 8:50 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.